So yes, there we are. So I would then do some. That's Bjørn's Ensaker. And then we will have 3 interventions on the framework that we do in Norway. So I will say a little bit about an overview regarding the NORCAM framework. Some of you know it quite well, but maybe not all of you, and also for the audience seeing this on the screen. So and then 2 concrete examples of how 2 of our member institutions work with this. Bjørn has said something about the University of Oslo, which is quite ahead in this, and we will have an intervention from one of the professors at the center at the University of Oslo during the evening. But these 2 examples from the Southeast Norway, University of Southeast Norway, USN, and University of Life Sciences will follow after my introduction on the NORCAM. So and here is the what I will do first is to play a video from Alexander. That's the one who will give a presentation on his center in the evening. But he has 2 years ago, I think, made a small video that kind of gives an introduction to the NORCAM. So I'll try to open the link and see if it plays. Maybe it's a commercial in the start.
This is how AI optimizes my schedule. This meeting got canceled. Hooray! We didn't really want to go.
The Norwegian Career Assessment NORCAM is a toolbox for recognition.
Let's share the screen as well.
And rewards in academic careers. It was developed by Universities Norway in 2020. And I was a member of the working group. In this short video, I will present the toolbox and its motivation. NORCAM is inspired by the work in other European countries, particularly Finland and the Netherlands. It also builds on various reports and initiatives by the European Commission, Science Europe, and the European University Association. As a member of EUA's Open Science Expert Group, I have followed this work closely over several years, and I'm pleased to see the enormous political and cultural shift that is currently happening. The matrix consists of 6 areas of competencies to be assessed: research output, research process, pedagogical competence, impact and innovation, leadership, and other experience. We acknowledge that institutions are different and that the detailing of the results and competencies for each of these areas need to be worked out in close collaboration with the respective research fields. Still, these overarching areas cover what we believe are core competencies required in research and higher education. Each competency needs to be documented in some way or another. This could include lists of publications or artistic works, links to databases or datasets, courses taught, and students supervised. Some of these already have established systems and metrics. For others, it's necessary to develop new documentation strategies, including quality control of the documentary evidence. Each competency should also be accompanied by a subjective reflection on its quality and relevance. Endless lists of publications or courses taught may not be particularly helpful for an assessment committee. Then it may be more relevant to read the candidate's reflection on why these matter. However, the reflection must be backed up by documentary evidence. A committee needs to be able to check that the person's claims are valid. The matrix provides a framework for systematically describing, documenting, and reflecting on one's competencies. However, to be helpful, it requires tools for efficiently creating and assessing such matrices. That is why we also propose to create an automatic CV system. The idea here is that this could build on or even be integrated into existing quiz systems. It should be web-based, user-friendly, and allow for easy import and export of relevant information. Much of this information is already available from various data sources, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Rather, it's a matter of integration and quality control. We believe that such a matrix system, including the necessary tools to make it a reality, will help to measure quality and excellence through a better balance between quantitative and qualitative goals, recognize several competencies as merits, but not in all areas at the same time or by each employee, assess all results, activities, and competencies in the light of open science principles, practice transparency and assessment and visibility of what should be recognized as merit, promote gender balance and diversity, and assist in the concrete practice of job vacancy announcements and assessment processes locally. At the moment, Norwegian higher education institutions, including my own here at the University of Oslo, are working on how to implement NORCAM locally. The toolbox has generally received positive feedback here in Norway, and I see that there's a lot of international interest. NORCAM is a toolbox that can help us move from policymaking to concrete action.
Okay. We'll switch back to the presentation. So this is the thing about the documentation is, of course, what we all should work on as well, but that is another working group. So hopefully that will give us some clues on where to go interoperably across international systems. Yeah, that's the one. And now we are sharing?
Yes. In few minutes.
In few seconds.
Few seconds.
Here we are. Yeah. Okay. So I think most of you have heard about this several times, but the point is that the NORCAM framework is flexible and holistic. All trades within a university system, and also a collection of tools. We are talking about a toolbox in this working group, but this is a tool within the tool then, probably. And we used to say that we don't need to use all the tools all the time for every job. So if you are to focus on recruitment within a small center aiming at some policy or thematic thing, you use that kind of that part of the framework. But for a university, you would probably kind of have all the tools available, but you don't use it all the time. So that is what the different institutions do. They start from the kind of the universal one, and then they pick and choose and integrate maybe some more profiled competences that they know that they need more than in other institutions. So we kind of argue that it is not only flexible within a Norwegian context, but it's flexible and possible to use also in other national contexts. So we'll hear about that a little bit later. So, and what Alexander talked about, and that we know it is a challenge, is the third row, documentation, how to document publications, competences and results beyond publications. And that is, of course, why we use publications so frequently, because it is developed as a global system of counting quality, and then hence it becomes kind of a proxy for quality in general. And that is kind of the gap that we need to fill with something wider and broader here. But then how to document other kind of innovation competences and so on. And therefore, the ARA and the CoARA is high on the agenda to find a better balance between the qualitative and the quantitative information that is in here. So what we do in Norway is that, as both Bjørn and also Alexander in the video said, that we are coordinating in Universities Norway. All our members, almost all our members, work with integrating an NORCAM perspective in their recruitment policies. And the way they do that is to discuss and develop a version of NORCAM for their own institution. So we will get an example from USN and from NMBU today, and then we have all the other, I think it's 25 institutions that all know is working actively with this as well. And the University of Oslo was the first one, and they have implemented this fully. So they are now working, as Bjørn said, with kind of implementing this out in the different part of the institution, and also in the evaluation committees and so on. So what we also do and coordinate to a large degree in Universities Norway is to integrate, because you can see a profile of a university can be manifested in its NORCAM version. But within a university, you have different academic areas, and they value quality differently, from humanities to the natural sciences and artistic research and so on. So, and to some degree, and a bit differently between academic fields, they cooperate across institutions on what is a good professor in mathematics. And then they, within natural sciences, they are quite eager to cooperate across institutions. So they have a committee by us, or they are not set out a working group that is updating their common recommendation for all hiring and appraisals within natural sciences. The institution doesn't have to follow that. that is voluntary. So it is a recommendation. It's not, we don't decide at the Universities Norway. We only make good arguments, hopefully, and it's free to follow. So so we coordinate this, and we also are organizing some kind of recommendations on how to work with the combination of the national regulation on hiring and appraisals and the NORCAM CoARA agenda, because that has to be kind of facilitated. So one could think, and we have, I think NORCAM is quite known in the CoARA community as such, and we have worked both bilaterally and in the different meetings presenting how we work, and then sparked some interest. So I remember Janne was here 2 years ago together with your Finnish colleague, and also from Kim from Netherlands and others, and kind of sparked the process here even before CoARA came about. So our kind of idea is that this is free for use. So and it would be interesting also when we talk about the toolbox, the general toolbox in the CoARA working group, how kind of a version of Norwegian toolbox can be of use by others. So I see it misses some clicks here. Try to be smart. So Jan is presenting a kind of a version in Finland, and I've also been told that our Swedish friends in our sister organization, Directors Conference of Sweden, SUHF, is working also with a Swedish version, and also putting up a national chapter also in Sweden, as we heard last week. So that is what I had to say at the start. I don't know if there are any questions at this point before we go into the institutions that we have. Yes. Shall we go to USN then? Herman Ström, please. You can introduce yourself.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ragnar. Thank you, the rest of the working group, for inviting me. My name is Herman Ström. I'm a senior advisor in the Department of Research, Innovation and Library at the University of Southeastern Norway, USA. And I have about 15 minutes. And we'll first say a few words on the University of Southeastern Norway, what it's all about. And then describe the project that we have called NORCAM and CoARA at USN. Status today, spoiler, we do not have a USN CAM ready. So this is really a work in progress. And also we have a pilot project with a new database that we're working on that I will say a few words on. And then end with some challenges and some takeaways thus far. So USN is one of Norway's younger universities, I guess. It became a university in 2018 when 3 university colleges merged. And now we have 8 campuses all over the southeastern part of Norway, from the mountains of Rauland to the city of Drammen, which is just half an hour from where we are now. We have about 18,000 students and almost 2,000 staff. It's not really, I wouldn't call it a research-intensive university. We have about, I don't know, 1,000, 1,100 scientific publications reported every year, and maybe a handful of EU and large research council projects that we coordinate. We have 4 faculties: Faculty of Health and Social Sciences, Faculty of Humanities, Sports and Educational Science, USN Business School, and the Faculty of Technology, Natural Sciences and Maritime Sciences. And then we have the central administration supporting all of this. I will not go into detail in the strategy plan, but I think that there are some points here that are worth emphasizing in this context. We have a vision for our university that is, it's really broad. We want to be seen as a regionally relevant partner, and we have been for, you know, not just the life of this university, but also the university colleges that came before. Really important in, of course, educating teachers and nurses and engineers. And we have a lot of partnership with people locally in this large region of Norway. But we also want to be internationally recognized, of course. We have some good, really good research groups that do good work, also in bringing in, you know, like EU funding and publish a lot. But this is also a challenge when we work with NORCAM and implementing the CoARA principles. We are a really broad university with really diverse set of activities, diverse set of impacts, results, and also research milieus or research groups. Yeah, this is more on the same, I guess, so I won't go into detail here. We have been working on this for a few years now. It really got a proper start when we signed the agreement on reforming research assessment in, was it November 2022? And then we were already way into the process of making a policy on open science. So we spent a lot of 2023 finishing that. It also has a chapter on transparent evaluation of researchers and research. So it goes hand in hand with our CoARA commitments. And then we finished the CoARA action plan last year and shared it in this Zenodo repository. And also in 2024, we started this project NORCAM and ARA at USM. So our challenge is to develop a coherent framework for assessment on all levels that is compatible with USM's institutional profile. And this ties in, I guess, partly at least with what you were saying, Sibylle, because I will return to this, but we try to not only make our own version of the NORCAM matrix that we can use when hiring. We also want to make a larger framework that allows us to assess research and research units on all levels. And again, we want this to fit with our institutional profile. Again, 8 campuses spread out all over southeastern Norway. We have a lot of professionally relevant research and study programs, again, big on nursing, teaching, and other such subjects. We see ourselves as a mission-oriented university. We have identified 5 strategic research areas. I will return to that when I talk about the pilot project. We have a high number of, I'm not sure if this is the correct English term, teaching professors, docenter, universitetslektorer, university lecturers. We have quite a bit of what I have called artistic research here, kunstnerisk utviklingsarbeid in Norwegian. Artistic development work would be the more, literal translation. And we have a strong regional and also international presence, I would say. And open science is important for us. So this project, NORCAM and ARA, we have from the get-go been wanting to include researchers as much as possible in this process. So we invited all the faculties to nominate 1, 2, or 3 candidates for a working group or a project group. And we have a really good project group going. We have 1 vice dean for research from one of the faculties, 4 professors, 3 associate professors, 1 researcher, 1 university lecturer, and 1 PhD student. So it's a large working group. We have 3 full-day meetings every semester. And then we have sort of a secretariat from the administration, from the HR department, from my department, and also from rector staff or a unit for analysis, strategy, and institutional governance. We have 2 proposed work packages. One is the proper NORCAM package, or USN will probably end up in a USN CAM in some form or another. And then the second work package is looking at a framework for assessment of units at USN. Departments, faculties, all the way up to USN in the dialogue with the ministry. So work package 1, this to my right here is where we are now. Norwegian bløtkake, cake with many layers.
Cream cake. Cream cake.
Cream cake. Yes, that's the right word. The bottom we have the NORCAM and other frameworks. And then we are, of course, inspired by the work that is being done at other universities in Norway, perhaps especially UIO. It's not just because we are here today. They have done a really good job with their UIO KVM. And they have this form up here that we want to develop and make our own. Because we have seen in many discussions with the people in the working group, the professors and the associate professors, etc., that we need to make it clear that we have to adapt this to not only the USN context, but also to make it clear that we do not see the bar being at the same level for professors and PhD students. And this form up here is one way of making that different steps. Yeah. And also, since we have many research groups at USN working with artistic research, we need to make perhaps a separate part of the matrix tailored to them. And a lot of work is now being done nationally. There's been a open hearing process on a CAM for artistic research, as well as the work that is being done on the CAM for university lectures, dosentløpet in Norway. We need to be aligned with the results coming out of that process as well. So this is where we are. We have presented our first draft models for the Committee for Research and Innovation, led by the Vice Rector for Research and Innovation, and gotten a lot of good feedback from them. And we hope to have this work package finished by August, September. So the second work package is this whole institutional framework, and we believe that we have to, well, we don't have to, but it's an advantage to do both of these frameworks, to create them both in the same process, because we want it to be sort of a common thread from the people we hire and how we work strategically with recruitment, and the common thread going all through the research groups and the departments and the faculties and how they prioritize, and all the way up to our yearly dialogue with the ministry. And we, of course, recognize that our 4 faculties are very different. They have to do many of the same things. Of course, they have to have high quality research being done. But they're also very different in terms of, one of them having a lot of artistic research, etc., etc. So we need to make a flexible framework that can hopefully allow us to also gather documentation and data and aggregate that up, and in this way also have a good overview of all the relevant activities and effects, impacts, etc. That USN is creating. It's ambitious, but we're trying. So yes, this is our 5. These are 5 strategic research areas: energy, climate and environment, regional value creation, childhood belonging and life skills, health and welfare services of the future, and democracy, societal organization and governance. And these 5 interdisciplinary research areas are thought of as our 5 missions. And they have been going on now for 2-3 years. They all get a yearly budget, so they have a call, and then USN researchers can apply for rather small amounts of money, but enough to get projects started, to further develop applications that have been sent to Research Council Norway or EU, but that didn't, end up being funded, but almost there, that they need perhaps just a small incentive to get there in the next round. And all of these projects should be in collaboration with also, of course, academic partners outside of USN, but also partners outside of academic sectors in Norway. So our pilot project working with these SRAs has been to develop our own little database. We want to systematically document the results, outputs from projects that have been funded by the SRAs, their impact, the kind of cooperation and co-creation activities that they have been carrying out, the new networks that have been started from these SRAs, and the arrangements that they have carried out. So basically, it starts, well, this bottom module is brand new. We're starting using this this week, actually, because now it's application time. They have a call out, and all the applications will then go into this database. And so, regular project applications with a project plan and anticipated effects and impact. Some of these applications will be granted, and then after a year or 2, they will use this database to report on the project results, on their impacts, and on all kinds of networking activities And all this is because we saw that, I mean, we have Kristin, that some of you may know, is a national CRIS system in Norway. And it's really good for documenting publications and some other outputs, but co-creation activities, seminars, the collaboration that you do on a daily basis or more or less informally. We didn't have a place to document that, and now we do. And then the leaders of the SRAs, they can take all this information from the projects that they have funded and use it in their yearly reporting to the USN leadership. And again, we've been using this top 2 modules once, and it turned out good. And now we're trying the 3rd module, and hopefully, if this works as we expect or hope, then this can be scaled up, and perhaps we can use some version of this, for instance, for the research groups. That's the next plan, and this will, you know, be a key component in this deliverable from the work package to making this framework for assessing research on all levels at USN. So last slide. It is challenging to document the wide variety of activities, results, and effects that we want to include. As Alexander said in the video, we proposed an automagic CV function when we wrote the NORCAM report. We're not quite there yet. But it is challenging both to have the infrastructure and also to make it as user-friendly as we want it, as automated as we want it. A lot of this information has to be registered manually. So then we need to take care that we don't ask more manual input than necessary. Yes, assessment on the individual level versus on aggregated level, there must be a common thread. I won't say anything more about that. Changing culture is difficult. Some faculties are more reliant on the good old indicators than others. But this is also something that we are really conscious of in the project, and we have planned a lot of activities involving the various researchers and research groups in this project. It's always difficult when we make something like this framework to balance between making it too concrete. We had our first draft again for this Committee for Research and Innovation, and they said there are too many details, too many examples. We have, you know, filled in all the blanks, and they said, we don't have any researchers that can, you know, tick all these boxes. What do you want us to do? And that wasn't the intention, of course. It was meant as examples, but when people see a lot of examples, they think, I think, more or less consciously that you have to have something to say about all of this. So this is a challenge. And then all the gray zones, you know, research, you know, and the connection with both teaching, innovation, other activities, how to, you know, make a frame around the framework. Yeah, and then the sort of the kind of a positive takeaway that we've already seen, that this is not a revolution. It's more of an evolution, because in Norway and at the USN we don't rely. Björn's example, I don't think we would do it like that in our university, using the H-index in that mechanic way. But it is a necessary restructuring of today's best practices. And yeah, that was what I had. Thank you. Questions?
Ingrid Roksrud from the University of Life Sciences.
Thank you.
let's hear from you.
Hey. Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Ingrid Roksrud. I work in the Research and Innovation Department as a Senior Advisor in the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. So I'm going to focus on the implementation of the NORCAM at the NMBU. And we just implemented our NMBU version of the Career Assessment Matrix 1st of January this year. And first, a few words about the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. The origin is the Agricultural College of Norway and the Norway College of Veterinary Medicine. And these two institutions merged about 10 years ago and became the Norwegian University of Life Sciences we have today, the NMBU. So this figure shows you the size. We are a modestly sized university, but we have a tradition as a research-intensive university. About 2,000 employees and 7,700 students, about 500 PhD fellows and 7 faculties. We are situated about half an hour drive from Oslo in Ås, and we have this beautiful historical campus there. So instead of showing you the faculty structure, I have this slide here where you can appreciate the diversity of research themes at the NMBU, which is quite diverse, but still focused on this green profile. We also like to call ourselves the Sustainability University. It's a very multidisciplinary university, and also quite a lot of applied research and a long tradition of collaborating with industry and with research institutes, etc. So let's go to our work with the Career Assessment Matrix. So the starting point was, of course, the NORCAM report and toolbox and the agreement on reforming research assessment. But I want to emphasize that, at least in my perspective and our perspective, the national initiative has been very important. And I imagine that other universities in Norway would say the same. And the work that has been done by the Universities Norway with Ragnar and colleagues has been very important. And they've done a fantastic job. And also the fact that with this report, I mean, it's a toolbox, but it's also comes with recommendations and also recommending that the institutions adopt this system. So it's sort of like it gave a push. So I will take you through the main steps of our internal process to implement the NORCAM at the NMBU. So we worked with it for about 2 years before we implemented it now this January. So we deliberately didn't move along very quickly. We thought we need to get the faculties and academic staff on board. So we do it in a relatively, not too hastily. So it was initiated by the Pro-Rector for Research in October 2022. And we decided to limit the scope to the positions of associate professor and professor in the first phase, and to the recruitment and promotion to these positions. So we established a working group where all faculties were invited to participate. And we also had administrative staff in the working group. I was there from the research department and my colleague from the HR department. So it was also collaboration between academic staff and administrative staff in the working group. So we signed the agreement on reforming research assessment. We had a pretty effective or efficient working group, delivered a report with a recommended NMBU version of the career assessment matrix, and some recommendations on how we were going to use it in our recruitment processes. And then we had a quite thorough internal consultation process. So the Pro-Rector for Research, he went to all faculties in meetings presenting this. We had a written consultation, so each faculty provided a written feedback to the working group recommendations. We went to the different university committees, the research strategic committee, the education committee, the top management, of course, also, and we were also presenting this and discussing in this collaboration meeting between the employer and the unions on several occasions. So we also received their input. And then based on all this, we had a 3-hour-long sort of more like a workshop between the Central Research Committee and Educational Committee, where you had all the should I speed up there on that? Where they were able to agree on a recommendation for the NMBU camp, and they were able to agree on some main principles and how we were going to use it. And they were sort of forced into going into more administrative issues than they were used to. So it was, but still, I think it was important because it gave us a very solid mandate to take it further to the university board. And the university board decided to implement it in March last year, and then due to some other issues needed to be prioritized, it was paused for a few months, but then we were able to finish it so that we could implement it in January now. Okay, I just wanted to give you my view on some important success factors, I think. When the prorector initiated the process, there was some skepticism internally, and a lot of that skepticism has disappeared during the process. Not all of it. And maybe, I don't know, the coming months when people start to actually use it, when they hire, we might, we don't know what kind of experiences people will have then. But at least for now, it has been pretty well received. So I think that we had a very strong commitment from the rectorate. It was absolutely necessary to go through the whole process. It was very useful that we had a very close collaboration between the central HR department and the research department. I mean, from the research side, we could never have done it without the HR. But I think also we were very useful to them to sort of like steer a bit and to interpret, the input from the academic staff, etc. So it was very fruitful collaboration. The fact that we were able to combine this with some general improvements of the recruitment process. I think also the fact that we were not only consulting, but we were involving the academic staff at every step of the process, and we were also adapting it to their feedback. So, because it was very important for us to try to adapt this into something that they feel relevant and useful, and using the terminology that they can relate to, etc. And I think that that's my last point. The University of Oslo had already done quite a good job on adapting the NORCAM matrix to the recruitment and promotion processes. So that was extremely useful. We very, like Herman, we have also adapted it or used a lot of the work from the University of Oslo. Yes. So this is the NMBU career assessment matrix. So there are these 5 areas of competencies, and this is the same structure as the University of Oslo. We've done some adjustments to number 5, but 1 to 4 is the same. So it looks a little bit different than the NORCAM titles, but in practice it's the same, I would say. So what we've done is that we've also made this second level of subcategories. And the reason why we did that is because you've already talked about it. The whole matrix is quite overwhelming. So we found it useful to like really, okay, what's the main content of academic qualifications? So output, process, leadership. What are the main components of the educational qualifications? So we use this quite a lot in the communication. But then, of course, you have this is the whole matrix, and that's the same structure as what you've seen from the NORCAM with this long list of examples, and our list is even longer than the documentation and the reflection. Yes. Okay. I think it was already started the discussion about how flexible should it be and how extensive, and we try to find a balance between structure and what is obligatory, and what kind of flexibility do you need to have for one job position or for an area, an academic discipline, etc. But and also here we were inspired by the University of Oslo, and then we further developed it somewhat. So we have some main principles for use. We use the structure of the matrix to define who assesses what. So the expert committee for both promotion and recruitment, they assess the competence areas 1 to 4. And for recruitments, after the expert committee is finished, we have the appointment committee. They do the trial lecture and the interviews, and they, based on the work done by the expert committee on competence areas 1 to 4, they assess those, and then also competence area 5, which also includes personal. What's the English word? Not skills, but yes. So we also agreed on the standard weighting of the competence areas, and these are also adapted to the 2 categories, so associate professor and professor. So the most important is maybe that for associate professor, academic qualifications is given priority in the weighting, and then secondly, educational qualifications. But all areas have to be assessed. And for professor, both academic qualifications and educational qualifications need to be on a high level and are prioritized over the other competence areas. And it is possible to deviate from the standard weighting, and then it must be specified in the job announcement text. So there's a small flexibility still there. And then the applicants, they write a reflection note to complement the documented results. And we also at least intend at this point, we're still at the phase where we say we intend to use it in staffing planning and in career development. And this is something to be worked on in the coming year or so. So a few words about what kind of feedback did we get from the academic staff. This has already been mentioned, but when we present this story about using bibliometrics, they say, well, we don't do it that way. So I've learned that it's very important to communicate in a nuanced way regarding this topic. So we have received a lot of feedback saying that that a lot of what lies in the NORCAM matrix, they do it already. And in particular, making a qualitative assessment of the quality of the research qualifications and not overly relying on bibliometrics. That is something that they at least tell us that they already do. But NMBU is, of course, a university. It's not like a very an excellence-based university. It's more an applied university, and there's already also a lot of work done collaborating with the industry, etc., etc. So maybe this cultural issue is not. It's a bigger issue in other universities. So it's more of an evolution, not a revolution. It has been. It is a research-intensive university, and there's still a very clear, strong sentiment that the research qualifications should be very highly prioritized when recruiting associate professors in particular, but also promotion to professor. So we try to incorporate that in that standard weighting system that I explained. And from early career staff, some feedback from them. They appreciate this greater breadth of results and experiences. Yes, I will be quick. And that it's more systematic and transparent. They say they expect more equal treatment. And they also point to that there are a lot of career challenges that this doesn't solve. Yes, so to implement it, we've revised a lot of supporting documents, template for the job announcement text. So we now have that structured. The job announcement should be structured according to the matrix competence areas, guide for applicants, template for documentation of qualifications. We have no good solution to that documentation problem, so we made something very basic for the moment. and a template for the report from the expert committee. And everything is structured according to the competence areas of the matrix. And we're also working now on having different type of information meetings with different target groups. So associate professors working with promotion, PhD and postdocs management, and also the staff working with the actual recruitment processes. So we try to sort of differentiate a bit. We will, in the time to come, I think we will work a bit on how to use the matrix in career guidance and career development. And there's this issue, there's the question of how to expand it to the other staff, academic staff categories. And of course, the national work that is ongoing will be very important. And as a small university, it's very important for us to be synchronized with the other universities in Norway. So we follow what is being done at the national level. Oh, thank you.
Okay, let's continue. We have not only we are not only working on this in Norway, but we have some researchers following us and see how it goes, and that is a privilege. And when we were contacted by Liv at NIFU, that wanted to send a research proposal to the Research Council on this, we enthusiastically said yes. So, and I think that this is something it's focused on the Norwegian context, but I think it would be of interest for the whole CoARA community. The national context in Norway is Norwegian, but it's not that special, I think. So there's a lot of common possible findings, at least. So I give the word to Liv, that is the PI for this project, and she will tell us about how this will go about. So please.
Thank you, Ragnar, and thank you for inviting me to communicate this project to you. I mean, you are really the audience we want to talk to you this project about. So I present what we are doing here and why we're doing it and what we plan to do. So the aim of the project is to understand the drivers and barriers to resource assessments reforms. So there is a more general aim here. I mean, some general understanding, but the context we are using are Norway. So we are doing accompanying research on CoARA related and inspired reforms in Norway. And in doing that, we get help from user partners in defining and carrying out the project and to ensure that there is joint learning and relevant and applicable outcomes. So the project is then organized at NIFU, Nordic Institute for Studies in Innovation, Research and Education. And here you see the project team. In addition to me, Ida Svega sitting there is also the PI in this project. And we have the project partners. Here you see Universities Norway, and Ragnar is our contact person there. And there is the Norwegian Associations of Researchers and the Foundation DAM, which is a funding agency, and the Young Academy of Norway. Yeah. And in addition, I mean, to the user partners, they are represented also then in our user panel, where we also have the Research Council of Norway and the ministry there. So the approaches we are doing here are both some broader general approaches and also more specific approaches for resource assessments. At the general side here, our point of departure is that universities are kind of institutions that develop slowly. There might be some change agents, things might change. And in this context, I mean, CoARA and NORCAM may be change agents and help things change. But there will naturally be resistance to change. And there is a lot of institutional theory we can use in studying this. There are also a lot of literature on field differences, so it's also important to understand changes. And then my 4 next slides are on these 4 specific entry points to understanding reforms in research assessment. So we look at how research quality notions develop and institutionalize, and the reward systems in science, and the norms of research assessment that research assessments should comply with, and the role of quantitative indicators in peer review. So first, there is the entry points to understand reforms in research assessment. At one side here, we have what we can call field type quality notions. I mean, science is sort of self-regulated society. There are different fields that are self-regulated, and there is a joint responsibility for quality and to assure quality. So these are the field-specific notions. And at the other side, we have the space-type quality notions, which are about things that are not specific only for the field, but that are about setting priorities that are going across fields, allocating resources, hiring and things, and running a university. But I mean, when you operate here, these notions are, I mean, developed in tandem. And that's what's happening when you reform research assessments. It's not either or, it's both. And we need to understand in what way these notions interact to understand how the quality notions are developed and how a reform is developed. The second entry point is about the reward system in science. To build a career, you need strong incentives to comply with the criteria that you are assessed with. And normally those are very strong. You may have very strong motivations to do science and to comply with the field type notions in that you're and publish in the best journals and things like that, you know. And you need to do this to accumulate academic capital that you need to grow some independence. You need to get the funding to do your research. You need a position, you need a permanent position. If you really want, you need a group to do research. So this is what many researchers are concerned about, is the things they need to do to build a career. The badges here are, I think they are reward badges for, I think, primary science classes in primary school. And I think they illustrate a bit, I mean, the traditional view on science and how you reward it. I mean, it's things to be excellent and great and super, and you get a badge when you're good. And I think this traditional view of science is built on very early in people's career. And it's also the motivations for very many scientists. And then the third entry point is about the norms that research assessments are supposed to comply with. This might be pre-established in personal criteria, disinterest, impartiality, thoroughness, transparency, fairness, equity, efficiency. And as you see here, these might point in different directions. So to comply with all of them might be different. It's not the same to be efficient and to be thorough. But I mean, ideally, you should be both. So there are compromises. And people have different views on what are the important things that you need to comply with to do a good assessment process. So they will have different viewpoints on what is at stake when someone wants to reform what's going on. So they may have, for instance, different priorities when it comes to qualitative or quantitative criteria. And that's the fourth entry point that we have put up here. There are obvious limitations of the use of metrics, and these are generally acknowledged. Still, they are widely used. And that's because they are easy to use, they are easy access, and they demand less time, less efforts. I mean, it's what we can call the power of numbers. I mean, they tell a story and people, it's very easy to understand them. And they often also, you get a perception of getting an overview when you see the numbers. And in some fields, they are quite normal to use and they are perceived as legitimate. And they may be perceived to reflect, for instance, productivity or performance more generally. So the fourth entry point here is that this might be hard to moderate the use of metrics. So to our research questions in this project. First, we want to know what are the changes implemented in Norway and what are the objectives of these changes and how do reviewers experience the changes, for instance, new CEVA requirements or new review guidelines, and how do they change their assessment practices. And fourth here, how do applicants experience these changes? Are there differences between groups of applicants in how they experience them? And how do they anticipate these new criteria, for instance, when they do the research and plan their careers? And then fifth, what are the potential impacts on the Norwegian research system from these changes? And finally, what are the drivers and barriers for such change? That is the main question that we want to know. And we want to understand differences between types of organizations and levels of organization, differences between fields, and so on. The empirical approach is divided into two main work packages. The first work package is what is more directly on your working group, and that is the employment and promotion of academic staff. So here we are doing documentary analysis of both the university's actions plans, the local competence assessment matrices, to understand and study the changes and their motivations, and also hiring and promotion guidelines and job posting templates, and to map these changes from 2016 to 2027 or something. So the project is going on for 4 years. So this is accompanying research and we try to follow along the time. Yeah. And also this spring we'll send out a first survey to academic staff and leaders at all the 11 Norwegian universities. And we send the same survey in 2 years and we'll look at the differences. And we also do some case studies later on, not starting this year and not really planned, but then we'll do interviews with the involved stakeholders and also look at some applications, reviews and job postings and have some analysis of changes in these over time at selected universities in selected fields. And then there is work package 2, which is about what's going on in funding organizations. And here we look at the Research Council of Norway and Foundation DAM, which is then also our partner here. And we'll start off with document analysis of the evaluation criteria, applications form, the CV templates and guidelines over a 10-year period. And we do applicant and reviewer data analysis. I mean, both look at the applications, application scores, and feedbacks over a time period, and look at the changes, I mean, relevant to NORCAM and CoARA in the research in these two funding agencies. And also in this work package with the surveys, both to grant applicants and to reviewers, to see what they are emphasizing. In the review process and in the application process. And also we do some interviews with the funding agency staff here. I put up some examples of the questions we are planning to send out this spring in the work package when we study what's going on in the universities. So one question is, we'll send to the temporary fixed-term staff, and then we asked, what do you think would be emphasized if you were applying for a permanent academic position at your institution today? And we also asked them, what do you think would be emphasized if you apply in 5 years? So we are trying to see if they anticipate some change or not, or they think things will not change. And we do the same question to the permanent staff, and then we ask the same question if you apply for a promotion. What do you think will be emphasized? And the reply options here are, I mean, we demand they score 22 different qualifications on a scale from 1 to 5. To what extent do you think this will be emphasized? So we will have a lot of data, and we might be, but some of them might think that not all these 22 are relevant, and they might check off, don't know, or not relevant. But otherwise, we want them to score each of them from 1 to 5. So it might be a demanding for some, and but we still hope they will want to reply. And we plan to send it out to all academic staff. I mean, from PhD students and up to professors.
At the 11 universities.
Yeah, at 11 universities, yes. I also have another example of questions for those who have reviewed permanent staff or promotion proposals, I mean, employment or promotions. We do the same. We ask what was emphasized in the last proposal you assessed, and we want them to score this also on the 22 same qualifications and of 5-point scale. And all we will ask what should be emphasized of these 22 qualifications. And they can answer as it is today, less weight or more weight on these qualifications. And we also have one question about what they think about the current assessment processes and whether they think it takes care of what it should take care of. I mean, is there a problem to fix? And what is the problem? So to what extent do you think current assessment processes for permanent positions at your institution provide the following: thorough assessment, effective processes that do not take long, objective criteria, transparent assessment, equity, fair assessment, process suitable for recruiting the competence needed to maintain and develop my academic unit, my environment, fagmiljø innovation. We try to do this in a way so that we do it in both. They can select whether they want to reply the questionnaire in Norwegian and English, and we want it to say exactly the same thing in Norwegian and English, which is not always possible because they're very two different languages. So sometimes we'll do like this and have the Norwegian term in a bracket so they can see what, because if they are employed at the Norwegian university, they probably understand. Even if they want to reply in Norwegian, in English, I think they will understand have some basic Norwegian terms they can compare with. So we're actually using the comparison thing here, taking it back to to the respondents of the survey. This is my last slide, and it's about what we expect and what might be the outputs here. As I said, I mean, this is accompanying research on an ongoing reform, and we are going to do it for 4 years, which I think is quite unique. And it's a great opportunity to do research both on some general aspects of what's going on in university and how things are working, and understand more specifically about these kinds of reforms. So we are comparing about Norwegian institutions, which are, I mean, from small universities that are applied to the old, large research-based universities. And then we want to understand the drivers and barriers for reforms and changes and the impact of hiring, promotion, and project funding. And then focus on the differences between academic fields and also differences between types of universities. And I would say these are, I mean, insights relevant beyond Norway. When we are studying Norway, I think we're studying an early mover in this field, so it might be interesting for those who come after to understand what's going on in Norway. And also drivers and barriers are more general things, whereas the specific changes in types of universities in Norway might not be that specific, might turn out to be very different in other countries. And also the specific impacts on hiring, promotion, and funding might also be very different from institution to institution. And we are going to disseminate results from this throughout the period. So in addition to writing academic papers, we are going to do policy briefs and be at the relevant conferences and meetings and seminars to disseminate results, and with an end conference then in 2028. And then I hope that Ragnar can take the role of disseminating into your group, so that, and I'm happy to come back and in some years and tell you what actually happened. Yeah. But I mean, this is a project in which we communicate closely with our user partners to keep updated and to be relevant. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Nordic. Janne, you have been in charge of, I think, Finnish version of NORCAM, and at least in the name. So let's see what this look like in your context, please.
Thank you very much, Ragnar, and thank you for the working group for inviting me to tell about FinCam, the Finnish career assessment matrix. Of course, we come in this process and progress following Norway's example. So, of course, all we hear and about the progress in Norway is something opportunity also for us to learn about difficulties, how to develop our tool. So let me start on the Finnish example. So this is a short timeline of the development of FinCam, the Finnish career assessment matrix, and it can also serve as a kind of a content for this presentation. So some kind of starting point is our national recommendation on responsible assessment of researchers in Finland, published in 2020. Since then, we have established a steering board that has kind of taken the development of FinCam forward. We have done a survey to researchers on diversity of career assessment criteria, a bit similar in aims and content as what Liv was just explaining, what our plans with the survey in Norway in the new project. We are currently in process of public consultation of a draft of the FinCam, so it is exciting time for us finalizing the tool or at least a draft. And this year, hopefully we can publish some kind of FinCam report with the finalized version, at least in PDF. But our true aim is, of course, some kind of flexible, easy to use tool for supporting diverse use cases. And that would take place this year or the next year. But I wanted to first of all share with you this document because there is a background also to our national recommendation. So already in 2012, the National Board for Research Integrity in Finland published a researcher CV model that is it's a quite standard structured CV, but it has been since then very, very broadly used in Finland by universities and higher education institutions and also research funders. So this has already for many years provided in Finland some kind of structure for merits for researcher assessment. And that is maybe the reason why in Finland, our first initiative when we started to think how we need to provide a recommendation on responsible assessment of researchers, it was not to develop a kind of a CoARA assessment matrix with a lot of merits, listing the contributions and competencies, but we choose a bit another path. So maybe a background that is very familiar to this audience is that there are now a few national recommendations. Of course, we have the Dutch example, a room for everyone's talent. Then we have the Finnish good practice in researcher evaluation, and of course also the NORCAM tool. So what we did in Finland with the good practice in researcher evaluation, I'm sorry, it somehow a bit confuses the... Yes. So, but I hope you can still make sense what is there. So this was published in 2020. It was a very broad-based working group set by the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies. So Federation of Finnish Learned Societies in Finland is an umbrella organization for 300 learned scholarly associations across all fields of science, from mathematics to art research. Of course, involving researchers from all higher education institutions and research organizations. And the draft for the recommendation was open for public consultation. And the goal of this document was to kind of outline a responsible evaluation process from start to finish. So here you can see first item is preparing the evaluation process. We say something about the objectives and criteria of evaluation, evidence used in evaluation, selection of evaluators, providing evaluation guidelines, ensuring equality, and so on. Then we move on the evaluation of research with how you balance qualitative, quantitative information, take into account open access, open science aspects of the research work, how to ensure equality. And then in part C, we move to diversity of activities, how we need to recognize also teaching, societal interaction, activities in research community, and also understanding and recognizing the differences between field. And then there is also part D on researchers' role in the evaluation process, so that researchers need to be provided the opportunity to provide self-evaluation, self-reflection on their contributions, but also the evaluation itself should benefit the researcher. So be designed in that way. By means of feedback, it is helpful also for the researcher. And what I can say about the uptake is that the Finnish Universities Rectors Conference and the Research Council of Finland have committed to the recommendation, and many higher education institutions and research organizations have produced or updated their internal assessment policies and indicated somehow reliance also on the recommendation. Of course, they also rely a lot on the international policies, starting with DORA and so on. CoARA, of course, is now important. So when we move forward from the national recommendation, one of its implementation recommendations was to produce and develop a portfolio model, which then turned out to be FinCam as a project. And there we investigated, of course, different ways of structuring diverse range of contributions and competencies. So we, of course, have the TANK CV on the left side. Then a starting point for the CoARA assessment matrix model is, of course, OSCAM, the Open Science CoARA assessment matrix, where you have a familiar top-level titles for contributions. Then, of course, we look at NORCAM, which has similar structure, a bit in different order, maybe some changes in the wording. And then two universities in Finland already had produced internal CAM. So we also looked at these. Then we also investigated a bit the research comp model. And I also added what we later also considered important also is the resume for researchers model for narrative CV, where we have 4 basic areas: contribution to knowledge, development of individuals, contribution to broader society, and to the research community. So I mentioned that we did a survey. So this was the next step for us. We kind of created a list of contributions and competencies and skills based on various sources and our own investigation, and we presented this to researchers. So here is example of one question. If you could decide how your qualifications or performance as a researcher were evaluated, which of the elements listed below would you consider to be important? And then you provided a scale: important, moderately important, should not be taken into consideration, and so on. And we did this also for these broad areas that were taken from the CV model that I mentioned in the beginning, but we also had similar lists for research outputs, research process, teaching, societal impact, leadership, and open science. So what we discover is really that, of course, we find a lot of differences between different merits, contributions that individual researchers consider important or not important for themselves. But what really comes out that even if some elements are more frequently identified as important, we really need to consider all contributions that are relevant, at least to some researchers, for making evidence for their contribution and quality of and impact of their work, even if these are not relevant for all researchers. And we discovered that none of the items is relevant for everyone. So this is a kind of a nice support for the bigger project to broaden the diversity of contributions. So what we aim with the FinCam is that we have a first version of the FinCam matrix. So very much similar as the Norwegian tool. We aim it to be a national assessment tool designed to facilitate comprehensive, systematic, and transparent consideration of a wide range of work areas, merits, competencies in various assessment situations. So this is very similar to NORCAM, of course. And we also emphasize that the whole point of FinCam, like NORCAM, is to better recognize the diversity of work researchers already do and not to add to requirements what they are supposed to do. So this is very, very important. So in the current draft that we have had as on public consultation, we now distinguish 6 areas. So we have research development, innovation and competence activities, education and supervision, societal interaction, and participation in research community. And these kind of conform with the resume for researcher for areas broadly. And then we also have a place for general skills and competencies and background information that you usually have for qualifications in CV. And then in the model, you have also examples of qualitative and quantitative description of these contributions and competencies. And we will provide suggestions on how these can be documented. But this is still a work in progress, and we are fully share with colleagues from Norway the challenge of documenting everything outside traditional outputs. This now I see that the color has changed. So, but actually it doesn't matter much. So maybe there is no way of making this a bit better visible. But in research development, innovation, and competence activities, we have various individual contributions and competencies listed that can be a bit like in the NORCAM. Then under this list of skills and competencies, this is an example of scientific publications. Then I mentioned we have the examples of qualitative description. So this could be like a key scientific publication, role in creating the publications, most important pursuit of achieved new openings in research, or novelty, originality, risk-taking, or intertrans multidisciplinarity, or open access, or open science practices related to scientific knowledge production. And then also examples of quantitative description. These are actually types of output that are registered in the National Research Information System. But this is just an example to give a bit of flavor what is there. And then when it comes to documentation, we just provide this kind of broad description under the first big area, that explaining that there are various ways to document these different contributions. It's important to maintain active, up-to-date ORCID record, use persistent identifiers, and we also provide examples of information sources that are free, openly available, but also those that are subject to payments. And this same way, we go through education and supervision part. We have different skills and competencies, examples of qualitative description, examples of quantitative description for every item. Same for societal interaction. I don't think it's useful for me to go through this list in any specific way. And same for contributions to the research community, where you have items like editorial work or peer review of scientific manuscripts, and how you can qualitatively, quantitatively describe these. I mentioned that this could then perhaps lead in the future toward a better informed narrative CV. So the four main parts now link quite nicely with the 4 modules in the resume for researchers. The module 1 here in the resume is how have you contributed to the generation of knowledge, and the items listed under the big theme in FinCam, research, development, innovation, and competence activities, probably fit quite nicely in that part. Then there is in resume module 2, how have you contributed to the development of individuals? Then the part in FinCam, education and supervision, probably contains items quite relevant for that part. And the same way for module 3, how have you contributed to the wider research community? In FinCam, you have the section on participation in the research community. And module 4 in the resume, how have you contributed to the broader society? In FinCam, there is the part on societal interaction. But this is still entirely in the making, how we would like to make the connection between FinCom in future, with possibly with the narrative CV. But at least the structure now somehow supports this movement, hopefully in future. And then about the documentation, I'm again sorry about the titles. They seem to be confused. In Finland, we have like in Norway, you have a Kristin system that is excellent for documenting research output. The advantages are so clear. You get a full register of entire output of higher education institutions, of all formats, all languages, and so on. We have the same in Finland, but also with the same shortcomings when it comes to documenting anything outside the traditional outputs. But this is something in Finland, the universities and research institutions are working very nicely in collaboration to develop actually, let's say, data scheme for documenting activities, contributions, different types of expertise of individual researchers as well. So here you can see in a research.fi front page, there is a part for publications, how, of course, as is normal in these type of systems, you can document all different type of outputs, but there is also no place for people. And there, researchers can create their own profiles based partly on ORCID or information they put on the input in their institutional CRIS system. And there you have some examples how you can then document activities like visiting researcher or speaker or reviewer in scientific journal and so on. So this way, the national research information data space can be developed and improved, hopefully in future, to support the documentation part. But certainly there will always be contributions that are difficult to document in this way, let alone validate. So this is a big concern and something to tackle. So here are some of the next steps we have. So as I mentioned, we are currently in a process of going through the feedback on our of the draft on the draft version, and we are now finalizing, let's say, at least for the moment, the final version of FinCom. Of course, it will be and has to be updated later. And then we start the process also of developing FinCom to a web-based tool that we also hope would be easy to use, maybe something close to Automagic CV and support different use cases. How it can support researcher to better showcase the contributions and qualities and impacts of work. Can it also support evaluators to and institutions, how they profile the recruitments, or maybe even to profile somehow and better understand the starting point to develop the strategies toward recruitment and so on. And then, of course, there is the development yet entirely to be done on possible support for narrative CV, as I mentioned. And then we have also a lot of work to do with the documentation, the National Research Information System. And this is ongoing, of course. And I would just finally like to share a link you can find by Googling the report that we have published in Zenodo on the researcher survey on diversity of CoARA assessment criteria. And here you can also see the working group that we have working on FinCom. So actually, the coordinator of the group is Mira Söderman, my colleague from the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies. So I am just a member of that group. I'm happy to be part of it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
A question from Jan.
On? Yeah, very good. Well, hello everyone here and there. I also see some familiar faces. Is this on? Yeah, hopefully it is. Thanks for the introduction, Ragnar. I hope that I managed to kind of meet up to the expectations from this. But it's true that I have been working on this topic or these topics for a while. Let's see if we can remove some things here so we can get. Let's see, is that better? Can we get this thing off the screen as well? Perhaps, or at least move it up there. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Is this microphone very sensitive or where I'm?
No, it's no.
No. Okay, so I have 4 kind of roles, and I will speak about mainly the 2 right ones here, the center director and the open research advocate parts of this. Otherwise, I call myself a music researcher and a research musician, and I can get back to some of that as well. But when it comes to being an open research advocate, I was up until very recently Norway's representative to the expert group on open science at UA. And a lot of the things I've been working on is related to kind of the back and forth there, as Ragnar mentioned. It sounds like the microphone is turning on and off in this room, but as long as it's working out okay for out there, that's fine. Yeah. Also, I like to bring up this one. I know this is a topic that is off. It's an off topic here, but I still think it's an interesting discussion about the difference between open science and open research. And this is kind of also going to the heart of some of the things I'm going to talk about today. Is that by using the word open science as kind of a template, even sometimes seeing it open science and then in parentheses, including the humanities or arts and humanities or something, then that on its own is kind of a problematic thing when you start talking about these things. So in Norway, we typically use the term forskning, which relates more to open research and which I think is more inclusive for the things that I'm interested in. So that's just kind of an opinion there to start with. But the starting point of NORCAM was really, as you know, the kind of the need to go from and consider how we can open the research process. And by research process, I'm thinking about something like this, which could be that for a typical project, you would apply for something, you would get some funding, you would do the research, you will get some results, and you are evaluated on that, and then you start over again. So this is a quite normal cycle to think about for researchers. And as we know, we are still at the point where most of these are black boxes, although on the result side, we are in a grayish state, I would say. We're still working on it. And politically, I guess the battle has been won, perhaps, but in practice and implementation, we are very far from having kind of an open everything when it comes to results. And it's even more closed on the other side. So what I'm talking about here is this puzzle of different things that I like to bring up, where in theory we could open all of these, and there are good examples of everything here that could be opened in various ways. But also, even if it's closed, we still need to evaluate all these things, right? When it comes to researchers, and this was the starting point for some of the work we did in NORCAM, and I guess I'm not going to talk very much about that. You've probably seen it before. I think still that one of the key things about NORCAM and that I find interesting is the combination of the column 3 and 4, which comes out of a lot of Norwegian practice, but it's really about the documentation and the reflection. So I think sometimes in the past, we have had the tendency of focusing mainly on documentation or what can be documented. And this is why we ended up with these metrics of various kinds that we have, because they're easy to measure, etc. then you may kind of see that a lot of kind of the focus on narrative CVs and only kind of reflective things, then you kind of turn perhaps all the way over to the other side, and you don't have much documentary evidence for what you're talking about. So I really think a key when it comes to research assessment and researcher assessment is the combination of documentation and reflection, and that's easier said than done. Now, just to bring in a few kind of things and try to situate where I'm coming at this. So as a music researcher, I'm a professor of music technology, and most people don't know what that means. You could say that I'm formally hired into a department of musicology, and you cannot really see that on the screen over there, but it says musicology at the bottom there. So within musicology, music technology is a discipline where you're studying music really here. That's kind of the core of this. Then as a music technologist, then technology is really then the study of arts, crafts, and tools. And then I'm also interested in the psychology where you study the mind, and I'm particularly interested in the embodied mind. So that's kind of the field of psychology. Now, when it comes to these three disciplines, these are also the disciplines that are involved in the center that I direct, and where we really try to understand more about the concept of written from these different perspectives. So we even have interdisciplinary in our title, and we study written, time, and motion in various ways, with the aim to understand more of written as a fundamental property of human life. I'm not going to speak much about the content of this today, but how we do it is interesting, perhaps in this group. So we like to say that we, methodologically speaking, we work from the softest soft to the hardest hard. So we have people reading and writing books. We have different types of musical practice. We do all sorts of questionnaires and interviews, different types of measurements, eye tracking, motion capture, brain imagery of various kinds, EEG, fMRI, FNIRS, machine learning, robotics, and nowadays we're even doing some life science and biology studies as well. So it's quite a mix of different perspectives in one center. And we are currently 60 full-time researchers working at Ritmo, and then in addition we have a bunch of students and visitors, etc. So typically we are around 100 people kind of in-house at any point in time. So that's kind of the setting, and one of the cool things about this is that since we have all these methods also in-house, we're able to combine them in different ways, and I think that makes us quite unique because we can at any point in time combine all these methods in different ways. Not always all at the same time, that's very rare, but in different combinations. Now the challenge then, of course, about this, well, I'll skip this part here. Oh, did this come twice? Sorry about that. One of the challenges in working between these types of disciplines is also to discuss what is valued, what is of value here, and this is something that we have been discussing a lot, and I think that is kind of interesting to bring into this perspective here. And of course, then it's something about also trying to figure out kind of what am I, and am I anything beyond my H index, right? And kind of try to see how can we measure anything of these things. So, of course, then if you think about, well, this is a bit kind of to put it on kind of in a more tabloid form, but if you think about the humanities, you can think of, still people think that books is the only thing that kind of matter in the humanities. So if you want to get your professorship, you need to write that book, right, and get it out on a publisher. If you go to psychology, typically then it's the journal article is kind of the golden standard. And if you go to informatics, it's typically conference presentations or proceedings, so-called, and code that will give you some merit. So even kind of just from the outset, these three disciplines that I kind of deal with on a daily basis have very different ways of thinking about what makes sense. And when we even when we set up my center, the Research Council of Norway came to us and asked us, okay, so what type of KPIs, the key performance indicators, should we evaluate you on, right? Because all the other centers were easy. I mean, they were going to have their 10 Nature articles or whatever, right? And then they came to us and, okay, what should we measure you on? And I said, well, it's not really that easy, you know, because I can try to force my psychology colleagues to write a book, but I mean, it's not going to work. And at the same time, the humanities people are not going to write conference proceedings. So you know, I mean, even there, we're struggling with trying to figure out how to handle things. So, and then you have all these other things that where you can think of the different disciplines being fundamentally different. I mean, in terms of being what either like ideas driven, like you often find in the arts and humanities, or conceptual in the sense, or hypothesis driven that you typically find in psychology, or more kind of data driven that you find in informatics. So again, there also the entry points are quite different. And how do you handle these type of things, right, in daily life? So that's one thing when you just kind of think about the disciplines on their own. And then we talk about interdisciplinarity, which I think is an interesting term and something that many people talk about. But what does it actually mean? And I made this figure that I first wrote in a blog post back in 2010 or something, and that by far become the most cited blog post I have, with thousands of visits every month. So apparently people find this interesting, and I also published it in my recent book just to have it in a kind of a formal way. But here the idea, and this is really a combination of a couple of other models that other people have made. But the idea here is to think about interdisciplinarity as only a step on the way of how disciplines connect in one way or another. So you can think of intradisciplinarity or disciplinarity as being kind of the core, where on the left side here, where everything is easy and kind of everybody agrees. Then you can think of cross-disciplinarity as a way of, okay, well, you see that there are some neighboring disciplines and you may relate to each other and discuss something and even work together on something, but you're still quite far from each other in terms of actually getting into a proper academic dialogue. And when you come to multidisciplinary projects, then that's when you really work more closely together, I would say, but still in a way where you don't really step on other people's toes, right? I mean, you say, okay, I'm a sociologist and you're an anthropologist, and we, you know, I'm me and you're you, right? I mean, we don't really want to. I hear what you're saying, but I don't really care, right? That type of thing. And I would say that most so-called interdisciplinary research projects are multidisciplinary. People don't really want to change, and I think that's fine. I mean, I think we shouldn't actually force people to change either if they don't want to. And also at my center, if I have a psychologist that has a need in machine learning and informatics, well, then they can collaborate, but they may not necessarily spend the semester on trying to really get into the other people's theories. When it comes to interdisciplinarity, it's really about trying to actually step on each other's toes and kind of really kind of reflecting on terminology and kind of learning new methods and these things, and then you can kind of get to transdisciplinarity where these things are even more connected. So I'm not saying that one is wrong or right in this picture, and I think at my center we have all of these things going on at the same time and in parallel, and I think that's perfect. But I think also when we talk about these things and when we evaluate people and when we talk about how to evaluate people, I think it's also important to take this into account, because very often we end up in disciplinary discussions, and also in Norway, at Universities Norway, I mean, the way things are organized are also according to different lines, where you had humanities people are kind of talking over here, and then you had the natural sciences people talking over there, and you may then try to kind of put some interdisciplinarity on top of it, but in reality, I see that we fail often, and even though everybody wants the kind of or not everybody actually wants it either, but everybody says that they want to do interdisciplinary stuff, and all the funders also ask for it, but in practice, you're not evaluated based on this, and it's very hard work if you really try to do this in reality. It's my experience. Okay. Trying to be more concrete then. So at Ritmo, I've been hiring a lot of people over the last few years. Probably around 50 people all in all, and I hired around 10 people only the last year. So I've been on a lot of committees, and also before becoming center director, I was head of department for a period as well. So I have quite a lot of experience of hiring people at all levels at a university. I think the hiring committees, it's a really important group of people, and this is really where things happen. And you can make as much policies as you like at any level, but if you don't follow up and instruct the hiring committees properly, then everything is just not going to work. So I think this is really the key place. And what I realized then when I became head of the department, then we had a tradition of that the professor closest to the field that you were hiring were kind of set to lead that committee, which is a really bad idea, and we changed it quite quickly. And now I think they changed it in my faculty as well, and for various reasons. But having a more professionalization of the hiring committees, I think, is key if you actually want to follow up on these things, because so many things fail at this point. And I see this again and again. Also, when I sit on committees in other universities around Europe, then I see the same problem. Some committees are very well led and have very clear mandates and are well structured, and others are just chaos. And this is partly based on the institutional guidelines, but it's also partly based on the culture and the people sitting on these committees. And it's very difficult to say beforehand, right? Because often committees are composed of a number of people, from 3 to 5 people typically, that are randomly assembled. They typically don't know each other, and they come from all countries and with all sorts of kind of background. And sometimes it's pleasant, other times it's a mess, and it's challenging. And leading that is actually extremely challenging. It's also very rewarding, but I think if we want to change anything, we really need to focus on the hiring committees and on the leadership of or running committees. And I feel this hasn't really been discussed enough when it comes to these things. And of course, this is important for what you get on the other side, right? So if you want diversity, for example, and that many committees want these days, then you really need to start with the committees and try to figure out how can you set up good committees that focus on diversity in kind of in a broad way. Okay, so that's one thing on the hiring committees. Yeah, I should say also at Whitmo we had we also focused, and since interdisciplinarity is key to us, we also then really try to make committees where also we had diversity in the kind of people also coming from the different disciplines that we have at Whitmo, which is very interesting, because then people hiring psychology and informatics and musicology have completely different opinions about what is valued. But that is very fruitful, and it has led to many lengthy discussions and challenging discussions, but also very positive, I think, discussions from the start. So that's one thing. Okay, so that's something on the hiring side. Now, as a center director, one of the key things that we are doing at the center like mine is to develop people, right? I mean, that's what we do. So we have focused a lot on career development, and we have been doing this for 8 years now. So we started before a lot of other people did it. But this has really become a core thing of the way we work. And I think we need to have a much more structured approach to career development from bachelor students to master students to PhD and postdocs and even beyond. And that this should be much more integrated into everything we're doing. And I think also it's important then to identify that people come into a university in very many different ways, and they go out of a university in many different ways as well. So there's nothing like one path through a system. It's always like multiple paths, and we need to figure out how to do that properly. And those of us working at the university and have been so for a while, I mean, we are also perhaps not even in the best position to advise on kind of leaving academia, for example, that we perhaps should do more than we do. In any ways, the way we have developed our career development program is so that we help candidates with fulfilling some of the problems that we have seen with NORCAM, and particularly this documentary evidence part, because I see now that there's increasing focus on documenting what we're doing and providing evidence for that. And how can you do that? Well, you can collect a lot of emails and whatnot, but we have a system where we actually document for our candidates, and then we give them a diploma afterwards. So this is the screening thing that we start with when we have the mentor discussions with all our new incoming PhDs and postdocs. We go through the different parts of our kind of career development program, the academic communication skills, research funding, other skills, etc. And we evaluate and assess to what extent each candidate has these things, and then we try to identify holes, and then we work specifically on filling those holes. So that's kind of the program. In addition, we have various workshops that we run during our retreats every semester. on kind of more what you would call generic skills in terms of team and collaboration skills, project management, etc. So these are quite normal things that you would do. But these are integrated into our program. Is mandatory for all our PhDs and postdocs. And then at the end, we give them a diploma, which is, you may say, is a bit kind of silly in a way, but we, at least then we provide them with a document where it says the type of transferable skills that they have obtained while they were with us and that they can take with them, and also a transcript where they say that if they have been responsible for running our lunch seminar for one semester, then we put it there as kind of a task. So it's kind of it's a document that they can use for documenting what they have. So that's our approach also to kind of help in documentation, and that can save them from, well, it saves me from writing tons and tons of recommendation letters over and over again in various ways, because they already gotten this transcript with my signature on it, and it helps them also from digging out lots of emails and compiling random lists of things that I often otherwise see from candidates that apply for jobs. And I recently was on a committee for an American university, and I think that I had, from one candidate, I think I got more than 1,000 pages of documentary material, which was just random emails from the student over there. And I mean, just lots and lots of stuff. And it's just totally useless because, I mean, I had no chance at all to reading all of that stuff. And I could just imagine how many hours that candidate spent on assembling that type of portfolio. Okay. So in general, I like to develop and think about how can we create systems where we have automatic things happening, in the sense that you put in something somewhere and it should show up everywhere else. So also at Ritmo, we focus a lot on developing our candidates' web presence and trying to see how can we integrate different things. So I have made this kind of 23 tips to improve your web presence, where also, for example, then in Norway, we have the system called Kristin, which is a quiz system where we put in publications and other things we do. And that's also then used, coming up automatically up on the University of Oslo's webpage, so you don't need to kind of add something extra there, etc., etc. So if you had more systems that would interoperate, then life would be much easier, I think, and you wouldn't need to combine things. Okay, so that's some of the formal science things of what you have been doing, and I should quit soon, I guess, so we can have some discussion. But just a few other things that I find important also as a center director. One thing is the formalities, but another is to create a culture and change the culture, right? So we have been working hard on developing a culture of sharing at my center, and this is related to not only open research practices, but in general how we work and how we kind of develop within. So there's a lot of competition in academia, but we try to focus on seeing how can we actually develop systems where we can kind of talk to each other in various ways, share as much as possible. So this picture here is from our lunch seminar, where we actually have all research applications being sent from our center. They have to be pitched to the entire center, and then we have workshops with everyone is reading the proposals that we're going to submit. So this is a way of improving the proposals that we send off, but also then for everyone to get feedback from the rest of the center, but also to learn about how to develop a proposal yourself. So it's a quite unusual approach, and many people wonder why we do it like that, and wonder about what if people don't steal each other's ideas and these type of things. But we've been doing this for 8 years now, and we have a better success rate of applications than many others, and we have very happy people in general when it comes to this thing. So at least I see that it works. Yeah. Sharing, yeah, this I'm skipping this for now. This is more open research type of things and open hardware. And we also develop a culture of caring. I think that's also important. I mean, often when we develop systems, we forget that it's humans we're dealing with, right? I mean, as particularly as I've been seeing this since I've been working, both now kind of on the top and the bottom, you can say, of the system. I'm kind of on one side working on developing high-level policy, but on the other hand, having crying PhDs in my office. So it's something about trying to figure out how do you actually think about the people behind this, and that we need to care about them and develop them in different ways. So that's also something we're working very hard on, is to try to figure out how can we support people also mentally and develop their affective skills as well, and kind of celebrating as much as we can. Okay, so just to summarize, I'm thinking of this really kind of the whole aspect of doing this in practice as I'm doing now, thinking about both diversity in every single meaning of that word, but also kind of the heterogeneity of people coming in and out of the system. That's hopefully, by everything that we're doing now, we can support both of these. And I think that's the best both for people, but also for academia in general. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it there.